So my friend Swan is a Renaissance man. He's done everything, he can do anything, and the most recent demonstration of that is he got a children's book published. Well, I got a chance to sit down with him 3 days ago, and we went over his book and how he got this thing published and how he sort of created the idea 40 years ago and has waited this long for the right opportunity to bring this to the whole world. And I hope that he does bring it to the whole world.
I get a lot of phone calls about the knife that I make and people wanting to order them. But a year or so ago, a lady from California called me and she wanted a knife for her husband. And I've found that I really enjoy talking to these people. And I've gotten to meet people literally from all over the world, which is strange to me, but really enjoyable. Anyhow, this lady and I are having this conversation about her husband and the knife she wants. And I ask her what she does. And she says, well, I publish books and I'm a teacher. And I said, well, I've got a book, children's book that I made up years and years ago that's been sitting in a box for probably 40 years. And she said, well, why don't you send it to me? And I did, and she read it, and she says, well, I like this. Well, if you're agreeable, I'll send you a contract and we'll publish it.
Ah.
And I said, well, great. I have a book that's illustrated, but the lady's dead, and it would be not wise to use that. And she said, well, I have an illustrator. She's 10 years old.
Holy smokes. And let's tell the people who this is. This turned out to be Georgia Leiniger.
Yes, Georgia. I call her Georgie, but that's all right.
Yeah.
She's Georgia to me.
And she has a small publishing company, and she is an interesting lady. I've talked to her a couple times.
She's interesting, and she's very green, and she
Green meaning she likes sustainability and renewability.
Right, and she stands with the trees. I didn't really tell her that I've spent some of my life cutting down those trees for lumber and sawmills and stuff like that, and worked in the woods. But we get along anyhow. And
her books are printed 100% on recycled paper. That's important
they are.
to her.
Okay, so about the book, first of all, you had it maybe not published, but written and illustrated one time before.
It was written and
maybe talk. How did you happen to have this story in your back pocket, or this book, and where did it come from?
Well, I was coming down the river one night in a cow truck, and I was very sleepy.
And it's a dangerous drive. The North Umpqua is a dangerous drive.
It is, and especially in an old freight liner with a bunch of cows in it. And I came very close to putting it in the river. And I was either going to have to stop and sleep or do something else. And I started making up this story. And it got interesting to me, so I was able to stay awake. And by the time I got home, I had pretty much made up this little poem in my mind. And I fleshed it out at home and finished it and showed it to a lady that was down here that did quite a bit of stuff with the kids in school, and she was very good with computers and printing and all that stuff.
And this was about 35 years ago?
Or 40.
40 years ago?
Yeah, it's quite a while.
All right, so you were 47 years old 40 years ago.
Somewhere in there. A little bit incongruous for somebody like me to make up a mouse story.
A little, yeah.
Yeah.
But you had a history of your dad telling you stories about anthropomorphized animals.
Animals, I did. He had a little elephant named Roga Joga that had all sorts of adventures. And I wish that I could remember them, but I was pretty young.
Yeah.
I can remember the elephant. That's all.
All right. But that sort of explains why it was in your wheelhouse to develop stories about the adventures of animals, if they could think and if they could talk. And
I had little kids. Yeah.
And you had little kids, yeah, 3. So you come down the river, you compose a story in your head to stay awake. It was a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Okay? And then you came home good. And you fleshed it out because you saw that you kind of liked it.
I liked it. I liked the ending. I had it slightly different and a little more violent than is in the book now. But we toned it down.
Uh-huh.
And then I found out that publishers like, if they're going to do something like that, they like series of stories. So I wrote another one, and actually a third that I've lost, and I can't find any of it, and it was on a computer, and it's gone.
Well, maybe there'll be a sequel.
But if I do, it'll be better. The third one wasn't much. I wrote the second one. It had a moral. It had a purpose. It had a villain and a
solution.
Solution. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like things like that.
Yeah.
They wrap up neat.
Nice to put life in a box when we can, right?
Yeah. I sent this away to several publishers, and they told me it was not suitable at this time for children's literature.
They didn't like the mouse taking care of the problem anyway.
Right. They didn't want anybody eaten and hurt and electrocuted and whatever. So it sat in the box until I got in contact with Georgia. I sent her a copy. She liked it, and she has a young girl,
Emma
Wayy, that illustrates some books for her.
How old is Emma?
Well, she was 10 at the time. Now she's 12.
Wow.
And she did an absolutely unbelievable.
It's breathtaking in a way, so perfect.
For children.
For children.
Right.
For children. Yeah.
The other illustrations were gorgeous.
Sure.
They were absolutely unbelievable.
Sure.
But these are drawings for little kids that they will look at and laugh about and point at and giggle.
Relate to.
Yeah. Emma and Georgie went to work on this, and Emma put in a lot of time on it. And they sent me a copy on the computer that I could read and look at, and it looked fine to me.
With the art and the words put together the way it might be on the pages?
With it composed as it is on the page. But they also have a designer artist that Georgie uses that makes sure the colors and the pages and everything match, and it's something I know nothing about.
Sure.
And said, yeah, sure, go ahead. This is out of my...
Yeah. Yeah. And in that process, you and Georgie, as your editor, sort of arm wrestled a little bit about specific verbiage and how this could be said, and you came to compromises here and there, and you each had hard lines that you drew, and now you've got a book that everybody's behind.
Very little wrestling. I only balked on one change he made and had her go back and put it the way it was, and the rest of the little changes she made, one of them actually helped. One of them is concise, correct, and cute, and it fit very well. So I mean, it's an add-on. I have one great-grandchild. My grandchildren are grown. I have.
You don't think Angus would sit on your lap and listen to the story?
If Angus sat on my lap, I'd probably never get up again. I have a deputy sheriff, a Green Beret, and a would-be MMA fighter amongst my grandchildren.
Okay, great grandchildren then.
My great-grandchild is probably a little bit young, although he is starting to really like books. But
Cliff Walker Swan, what a guy.
Yeah, absolutely has changed Maxine and I's
Yes, he has.
life.
All right, so let me ask you this. What do you want Cliff to learn from this story? If you're not here 10 years from now to read it to him, what do you hope that he extracts when his mama or his daddy or his grandpa reads him this Two Tales of Timothy Mouse? What are you hoping Cliff can extract from this?
Don't give up the fight.
Don't give up the fight. Yeah.
There's a solution,
Yeah.
and you can make it happen.
And sometimes you do it by talking, and sometimes you do it by a shrewd move, and sometimes you got to fight.
Sometimes it's physical. And I dedicated this book to him, and she wanted the dedication. I'm lost. So I put in there, I hope your world can be as big as mine.
Yeah. It's a beautiful dedication. Kelly cried when she read it the other day. There's another great-grandchild almost here, like next month, right?
Yeah. She was walking up the road the other day, pushing Cliff in a stroller, and we passed her, and I said, "What are you doing?" She says, "I'm trying to shake this kid loose."
And this is a little girl this time, modern technology tells us.
Yes.
Have they shared their name with you?
No,
Oh.
it's a secret.
And here is what a Swan family gender reveal party looks like.
So here's the book. It's available on Amazon for about $10. I'm proud of it. It deals with courage and solving problems. And this wouldn't have happened without Georgie and Emma and the work they did on it. They brought it to life.
So just a couple of details about Salus Publishing. They are a small independent publisher. They use a small independent printer. They are focused, laser focused on sustainability, and so this little book right here is printed on 100% recycled paper, and that's important to them. Maybe it should be important to all of us, but between the collaboration between Georgia Leininger, Cy Swan, Emma Wayy, producing a little book like this with people who have good motives and bring an interest in, being good citizens to a project like this just makes it sweeter and sweeter. Who knows, maybe someday you will have a thought or an impulse or the time or the opportunity to do something like this too. Thanks for watching Essential Craftsman, and keep up the good work.